13 Questions by Mantranscending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
This week on 13 Questions, Graham chats with Marty Hansen, ski coach for the Olympics. Fun guy, local Calgarian. He's been on the Grimerica show a couple of times.
Yoga teacher, fitness instructor.
Marty, the fitness party and the yoga party.
Yeah.
Good to know. He's got a space up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't listened to this one yet. I'll have to wait till this one releases.
Yeah, that's great. Before
I can actually listen to it. But I'm looking forward to it. I know Marty, so I'm sure his answers were fantastic. Anyway, yeah, Marty's episode, as good as episode as any to grab access to those extensions. Fantastic little bonus section with Marty.
Yep.
One of the best, for sure, 100%. And of course, there's this will be episode 14, so there's 13 episodes in the back catalog already. You're going to get access to all, you'll get a new, as soon as you sign up for that $7 a month or $77 a year, you're going to get access to the webpage that's going to give you your premium RSS feed. And then you can delete your old RSS feed. You only need one RSS feed. And then your podcast will start coming out in their entirety with the free questions and the bonus section twice a week. So that's 2 times a week for your $7 a month. You also get exclusive access to a couple $100 worth of communication courses from TJ Walker. Fantastic courses. I know Joe Roop was starting them up the other day. I was talking to him, friend of the show. He was a guest on the show. I think episode 9 or 10, Joe Roop was on. And he started the courses, says they're fantastic. So head over, check those out. You get instant access to those as soon as you sign up. You also get access to, and we're going to change those up from time to time. We don't know what we're going to do next yet. We don't have enough people signed up to consider changing them. You know, maybe once a year we'll change that over to something new or license some new courses or whatever. Maybe Graham will make his own courses. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
All sorts of fun stuff like that. Of course, you're also going to get instant access to the members-only Discord and the members-only forums. And, I know Paulie was going to, St. Paulie was going to try re-recording he was recording his buddy for 13 Questions over in Scotland. Of course, when you do become a member of the 13 Questions podcast, Mantranscending, you get that access to podcasting.
Is that the original one he did, but he's going to redo it?
He's got to redo it. Yeah, the audio was
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still working on the audio standards page. Remember last episode we gave some tips in the intro? We're going to get a page up that has all that. But I know he was excited because he was going to re-record Sunday. So I'm excited to see what that sounds like. It's like 8 hours ahead there, so I should get that anytime.
Cool.
But yeah, and anyone can do that. Once you're a member, sign up for your monthly or your yearly or your lifetime subscription. You can go out and start doing interviews, asking people the questions. We send you a copy, the questions and the bonus questions if you don't know them. Go out, record your dad, your grandpa, your brother, your uncle, whoever the fuck you think is going to give you fantastic answers. Send them in, and if the audio quality is up to snuff, we'll release them in the feed. And all of a sudden, somebody is immortalized in internet history.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think it'll work.
Yeah, it'll catch on.
Yeah.
We're going to want to get in there soon. Become a member now and start doing it now before we're getting, so many submissions we can't keep up. So Marty.
Well, I'm going to read this from his website. It's m-2, sport.ca. And in 2006, Marty began his transition from coaching skills from competitive alpine skiing into teaching holistic fitness and wellness. His perspective of potential was developed from the 23 years of developing programs nationally and internationally. And this effort was supported several athletes to national team and Olympic status, as well as guiding some coaches into the international arena. Sport provided the energetic environment to witness capability firsthand. The transition to bring his readiness into maturity into yoga and qigong became due. Most recently, he completed a combined 500-hour yoga teacher certificate in Canada and India. And this experience brought a deep respect, of course, for the teachings that bring balance, strength, and freedom to the mind and body. So he's teaching fitness and yoga. He's got lots of certifications, Akanda, Advanced Yoga Teacher Training, Yoga Passage Teacher Training, Coaches Association of Canada, Chartered Professional Coach, Spring Forest Qigong, Level 3, Ong Qigong Level 1, life coach for personal trainers, National Strength and Conditioning Association, Canadian Ski Coaches Federation Level 4, Canadian Ski Coaching Instructors Alliance Level 4. Here's a quote from him. Practicing is in an enjoyable way to realize a normal essence of self. Stay steady in your breath and experience the prana, energy, you not only attract but contain. Normalizing is undeniably individual and authentic, and we can all seek this freedom. So there you have it. Marty Hansen.
Marty Hansen, enjoy.
All right, we've got Marty Hansen with us. Welcome to 13 Questions. Marty, how you doing?
Oh, I'm well. This is exciting for me. Thank you, Graham.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, looking forward to chatting. It's on probably the coldest day of the year so far.
Yeah, not bad, but I'm happy the truck started and got here in good time.
Yeah.
So to your new great facility.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. So let's just jump into the questions here then. So the first question is, what was the best advice ever given to you, and would you modify it at all today?
Oh, well, yeah. The best advice I didn't take, of course.
That's a good point. The question doesn't mean you have to take it.
Yeah. So it could have been the best, and I guess when I look back, and you give me these questions ahead of time, and I start to look back at what it was. I guess what I learned out of this is for without being too cryptic about it, but I the kind of guy that sort of needs to get cut to the bone almost to learn. Like as far as just seeking advice or having somebody say, "Oh, Marty, you should give this a try." I usually don't jump at it. I tend to go into my own what inspires me or motivates me, and then I'll learn. So this is something that I've learned over time about myself, and I'm definitely trying to bring that back. So I can really listen to people, and especially people that I respect, and see how I can apply this. So that's I think a big part of just being a little bit older, and within the life that I've lived.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was the most important lesson you learned from your parents? And when we talk about this, it doesn't have to be one that was intentional, right? It could have been an unintentional lesson, but.
Yeah, well, my parents are, both hard working people, which means that they worked long in their life. They did kind of one thing, and this showed me that there's a real steadiness of life for them. It wasn't that their life was easy, but they certainly taught me how to live my own life and kind of follow the beat of my own drum, and then understand the consequences of that as well too. So I still keep this plaque that my mother had given me about Thoreau, who says it doesn't matter how far the man or how offbeat the man basically is, he's still following the beat of his own drum. So, and to have some respect for that. That's a summary of it.
Yeah. Was that steadiness because of hard work then? Is that what you mean?
Well, I think it's a blend of hard, long work, but also probably exhaustion.
Yeah.
To work, to have a full day of work was very important for my parents. And my brother and I, we lived our life outside. Our mother would kick us out of the house, and we weren't allowed to come back in the house until lunchtime or until dinner time. We actually had an outhouse.
Free range kids.
Free range kids, exactly. So this is a terrific. I remember being a very terrific part of life.
Mm-hmm.
To have summers and periods of time and little part-time jobs and things like that. But Yeah, to kind of roam wild in the forest.
Yeah.
With the dog and the motorbike.
And were you with different ages of kids as well? And I mean, I remember hanging out with the neighborhood kids, which were all, you had to sort of learn to get along with, boys and girls of all ages in a way as you played around in the neighborhood.
Yeah, a couple of things interesting there for me was we had moved from the country to the city and then back to the country and then back to the city. So we did a bunch of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think people were just finding their way.
Yeah.
So this would have been the early kind of 60s. So I remember one time driving around distinctly with my parents, and they were looking at houses and a place to be. They say, "Oh, these people have a garden, a vegetable garden in the front and their back. They must be poor." Like we had a garden in our backyard, right? And we had sort of a yard, like a lawn, typical lawn in the front yard. And then eventually, the big goal was to have no vegetable garden at all and just have grass in the front and the back or something. And, when I looked at this, now, people would be living large if they had a tremendous vegetable garden in their front and their backyard. So, that always kind of left some sort of impression on me. And I could never figure out why we were driving around looking at other people's houses to begin with. But
that's funny. Just seeing what kind of neighborhood you want to live in or whatever.
Yeah, but when you get back to the kids, the calling card was all of the bicycles were at somebody's house.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to ride around until you found the bicycles.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you find out where everybody is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had the phone, so I remember the party line.
Yeah.
And then into, you'd have your own line, but the phone would just ring once. That's my buddy, like saying he's leaving from dinner and he's heading out. So that would be the code. right. There's no texting or whatever at that point in time. Yeah.
I often think about back then, how did we arrange to meet and how did we arrange things? Like it was just you go on your word, really. It's like, hey, I'm going to be there at 12 to play hockey in the tennis courts. And, people just know, like you just know, there's no confirming it. There's no just everybody shows up at noon to play hockey or whatever. Like there's no,
I don't even know if there was that, Graham. Like I'm trying to remember. I think it just happened.
Yeah.
Like
maybe there was less planning as well. Yeah.
Yeah. You just sort of showed up and, like there would be, if the kid, there would always be one kid that had the bat. I remember that. Like, you'd have your ball glove, and then somebody would have a ball. But you just show up, you have your ball, your ball glove, and then there'd be one kid, maybe he's a richer kid or something because he had a baseball bat and he had the ball, so he was a big deal.
He's important when you go out. You got to get him first. Like make sure he can play first. Otherwise, you just throw the ball around.
Yeah. So these games I think were very precious at that time, and our parents understood it. So then there would be the call back in, at night, I remember. Yeah. So, a parent screaming on the front porch or a whistle or something, so, yeah. And there was I can never remember anybody lost. I can't remember that. I can never remember, but I remember if there was a problem, how the family would, or how the families would sort of come together and deal with it. And this might have been at the very beginning of some sort of strange politics we're going through now, where if you supported a particular team of some kind, a sporting team, and then, your friends didn't, you're standing on opposite sides. And, I remember as a youngster being drawn into some argument where we were definitely taken advantage of, because we followed a different team. And I can't even remember which team it would be now.
What was it, like hockey? Or?
It's hockey, yeah. And saying, I'm following this hockey team. And it's, no, you can't. I don't know if we can be friends anymore. And then the parents would have to come in and say, you guys are being ridiculous.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, funny.
So what book has been the most influential on your life and why?
I really appreciated the Hermann Hesse book, Narcissus and Goldman. And so I'd gone through reading Siddhartha and Journey to the East. And, it was the first book for me that was extremely visual. Like, I think is the style that he wrote was amazingly visual. And, Narcissus was a...
So Narcissus was the name of the book?
Narcissus and Goldman.
Okay.
Goldman.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of opposite characters, where Narcissus was kind of a monk and very methodical in his goal setting and processes. And Goldman was this sort of character who is, going to fully live his life the way that he wanted to. And I think it was an influential time, or an influential book because of the time that I read it. I was in my early 20s, and I was working as a competitive ski coach at the time, and this is a very focused and kind of narrow existence in many ways. You're just pursuing ski races fundamentally, and all the focus goes into that. Yeah. So to read something that was somewhat, I guess, the blend of the books, but somewhat founded in Eastern mysticism, and this guy's take on it, Hermann Hesse's take on it, it still is dear to me today.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you have any daily habits or rituals, and would you recommend them for others?
Yeah, I, before I was a skier and coach, and now I practice Raja Yoga. And so Raja is the 8 limbs of yoga from Patanjali. And this is a very rich and extensive practice. And I guess if I was going to provide any advice, is to do your practice with sincerity. You don't have to be serious about it, but I'm just using these 2 words as a contrast. But sincere to me is deep from my heart and from my intellect, and that the energy and how this all works into the physical body. I find myself much more whole in this regard, and perception becomes more clear. And so this morning ritual of going through either if it's meditation or the physical practice of the asana poses or breathing or so on, really helps me to remain centered and stay steady in what it is that I'm doing. I've always worked with people on performance basis, being a coach and personal trainer, or fitness yoga teacher now. So I have to show up prepared and ready. And if I don't do my practice, then I'm just the same as everybody else. So this is an important part.
Yeah, that's good. So how long is that daily morning practice that you do?
I do my best to start it when, around 4:30 or 5.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, that's, I had a great experience. I went to India for 3 months, and I had a great experience. And, I'd listened to the teacher. I wanted to work with a specific teacher over there, and listen to this teacher talk about, how he understood nature. And so he was giving an example of, first of all, he was amazingly devoted to his practice. And the second thing is that he, part of this practice this one time was he found some old, yogi who was running. That's what he did first thing in the morning. And it was when the world was waking up. And so this is what this yogi taught him. It's like one lesson. This guy was running, and he ran about 20 kilometers or so a day, this yogi. And when he passed this information on to this, to my teacher, he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "I do this every morning. I run." He says, "This is my breakfast. I get the energy." And so I thought, oh, this is very curious. So I woke up really early and was about 3:00, and I sat on the roof of the ashram and experienced the earth waking up. So I really wanted to pay attention to this aspect, and it was very subtle, bit by bit, and really left an impression on me to sit and just hear the birds start, or the cows start, or the dogs start, or the donkeys start, or the people start, and it was an interesting momentum to experience. And this subtlety, it's a very, very subtle aspect. I realized it was in unison with what the ashram was doing. And then when the bell rang at 4:00 or 4:30, whatever time it was in the ashram, it wasn't a shock anymore. It was actually, I'm part of this process of now, the earth waking up, per se. So I felt like I was part of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with the circadian rhythms at all, or where if you're in different parts of the world? Because you must have to go to bed pretty early here in Calgary, and the sun doesn't get up like in the winter. The sun's not up till 8 or 8:30 at the shortest day.
Yeah.
So you've got to. It doesn't feel like the world's waking up yet when the sun's still 4 hours away.
Oh yeah, but for me, this period of time seems to be more precious. And
then let's say from 8:30 at night to midnight kind of thing, because you're sort of swapping out that morning time for let's say later at night then.
Well, if we go on Canadian, it's like I think this the sun's going down at 4:30 or 5:00, and it's coming up around 8.
Yeah.
So we have to fake it a little bit.
Yeah.
In this
Totally.
regard.
Yeah.
But I noticed a big difference on the quality of the day if I do my practice before I teach my first class.
Yeah.
And some of usually my first classes are around 6 or 5:45 anyways.
Oh.
And the people that I'm working with, they're this is part of it as well. So the collective intention is to be well prepared for the day.
Yeah.
So I do notice it.
Yeah.
And then there's times where, of course, if I'm not paying attention to another aspect of my practice, then I could disrupt my sleep. But then I've learned techniques around that too. So go ahead.
No, I remember that same feeling in the mornings in when I worked on a kibbutz in Israel for a couple months. I was one of my jobs there was to pick the cotton, to go down in the cotton fields and pick it. And we would be up probably 5, I would say. I think it was really early in the fields, and you could see the wildlife waking up, what's the dog thing? It's not the coyote, but the hyenas were around, and you were up. Yeah. I remember being that early morning feel of everything waking up. There is something special about that, being up when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a subtle form of stimulation, and I think it helps people become much more straightforward in what they're doing, and also steady. It gives time, as opposed to it being kind of pressured or traffic driven or whatever it is. When you come to the city, you can still maintain it.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit more concentration. So I find I'm less stimulated as a result of this. Yeah. I don't need coffee or rock music or or whatever. Yeah.
If I were to ask one of your friends, what is the thing they would say you need to work on the most, and why?
That he probably doesn't know what's enough. Sometimes. So just in the contrast of the last, I know, relax and sleep in a little bit or so on.
Yeah.
But I think that's what they would say. Yeah. What exactly is enough is an important, a pretty important lesson in life. Know when to stop something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good. What are you most curious about?
Well, that was a great question for me, and I think exploring what truly inspires. So, the concept or the deeper concept of self, and how self, who is looking is worth exploring.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is kind of behind or beyond the conditioning that, we go through, or we have all gone through. So, to remain centered in self, and, is it nothing, or is it actually something? And I believe it's something.
Mm-hmm. What was the most embarrassing experience of your life?
I think when love or friendship is lost, and to be upset by the force of a former's behavior in separation, and how that goes along with my own, how a person can unknowingly contribute to something that's so precious in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to realize that it only takes one match to kind of burn down a forest, but you still got to start that match, or strike the match. So to learn bit by bit how this environment of being with friends or with a loved one, and then going through some separation, how to be in surrender, and then how to not lose your way, how to keep your boundaries and values safe. So I think this is, for me, if I look back, embarrassment of losing love or friendship is, probably the toughest one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
What's your greatest fear, and how do you overcome it?
Doubt is by far for me the biggest one, and to let it kind of subside, as knowledge or truth really changes with consciousness. So the more I become conscious of something, or that becomes wider, then I see that my knowledge, or what my ideas were about what I'm in doubt of, can change, and it becomes much more peaceful. So it's accepting and observing is for me the greatest lesson in that, as opposed to trying to find a concept I can hang out on for a while, which is kind of prevalent in, I think, today's information.
Yeah. What quality do you most admire in a man, and why?
So in a man, is that what you're asking? In
Yeah,
this question?
or any man, I guess.
So a woman too, or just man? Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Okay, I'll go with man. I think that for man, it's compassion and respect, but this is so it leads to confidence. And when we're confident, we can be humble. And when we're humble, we can have interdependence with people. But if we're not confident, then we tend to be arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not, if we follow that arrogance, then we have to be meek on the other side of it. So this either leads us to being very independent, which is going on too much today in my mind. Like we're so isolated in many respects. So to try to come together is much more difficult. And I think these are the important qualities that are required. Yeah. So compassion is really an ability to be able to listen without putting any layer at all on the other person's viewpoints. To be able to say "and" instead of "but," is I think an important thing, especially in today's landscape of I don't even know what it is, if it's there's deep concerns for sure, and it's easy to deduct them as fashion in certain respects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who had the most positive influence on your life, and why?
My role models have always been mavericks. So if it's people in sport or fitness or yoga, that they really learn the subject, and they don't, they from front to back and with love and wisdom, they gain their wisdom by intently being involved in the subject of whatever it is that they're doing. And they don't treat it as an object. They don't put it into any sort of category of where they become the absolute authority on it. But they keep it in a subject and allow you to love it too, and to kind of bring you to the table in that respect.
Nice. What institution of society or structural aspect of modern life would you change given a chance?
This is
a tough one. This is a tough one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
There's a lot to choose from.
Yeah. So I think the diverse, or like the contrast, I'll use the word contrast between what is fundamentalism and what is sort of perceived fundamentalism. So fundamentalism at the deepest level, where it's acted upon, and it's whatever thought that comes through into that basic that's acted upon, is much different than fundamentalism that is discussed. And so when people get a little bit irate today, if you say something that it could appear to be fundamentalist, and it's not. It's just a discussion. So the difficulty right now that I'd see between men and women's roles are, that what could appear to be fundamental feminism is like it's difficult in some regards for women to behave a particular way. They think they have to behave in a way that is very feminist. And then men have a hard time knowing this. And so just for me saying this right now, I could be in big trouble.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not the case at all. It's learning to have this respect between men and women, and between subordinates, or people that are above. And right now, these are murky, and it's based upon people jumping into some concept of what could be fundamentalism.
Yeah,
and they've learned it somewhere along the line. So you don't really know which spirit you're talking to in the person. If you're even talking to their intellect at all, and 9 times out of 10, you're just sort of talking to maybe a restless thinking or some kind of confused thinking.
Yeah.
And, people, I think that's a challenge that we have. So if it's institutional, it's Christ, it could be from Netflix to YouTube to whatever, from there, Facebook, for sure, any social media.
Yeah. What is the most courageous thing you've ever done in your life? Or seen? Okay. The most courageous thing I've done in my life is to give up my life. So I've done that a couple of times, and to what do you mean by that?
To wipe the slate clean as best I can, and to hit the restart or the defrag button. And I see that this courage is necessary to teach. And so to decide to be a teacher is to live the lessons as fully as I can. And if I can live those lessons fully, then I can glean from them what attachment is, or what ignorance is, or so on. So courage is, I think, the ability to be, or the necessity to be able to give up something that is a person is extremely attached to. And when it comes down to heroics, I think that's why we admire people who would, they would put their life, their physical life, in jeopardy to help somebody else. And that hasn't happened to me. I've just had to give up one privileged life for a pretty good other privileged life so far.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that's important?
To take the time to listen to myself and respect others' opinions of what is true for myself and what is true for somebody else can be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so profound personal or profound self-truth is very paramount to me. That it's worth paying attention to, and it's definitely worth the concentration.
Nice. What qualities should a man strive for in today's world?
Concentration.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So
I've been thinking a lot about that lately.
Well, concentration is an ability to pierce present perception, and how that present perception it has some confusion to it. It could be one or two things that a person is trying to deal with at a particular point in their decision making. And so thinking is a function, but the function of thinking could come from restlessness, or it could come from distraction, or it could come from confusion. So to be able to focus on one thing at one time and to listen to that, to observe it clearly is concentration to me. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thanks, Marty. That was the end of our normal questions there. We'll get into the extra questions for all the subscribers. All right. So now we're into the extra section here. Marty, thanks for joining us.
This is really, I'm having a great time.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are going to love it. What would you tell your teenage self?
That self-knowledge is much more important than workplace success.
Self-knowledge is more important than workplace success?
Yeah. I think that's, I think if a young person can know themselves and go through, learn the techniques or the
I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. Yo, what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. Yo, what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. Yo, what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. Yo, what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. Yo, what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. Yo, what?
Why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why? I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians, and use labels? Now that's racism.
I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. Yo, why? I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. Yo, why? I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. Yo, why? I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. Yo,
Why is
why?
there innocent people locked up for life, while some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on
wonder how when they, how you wonder how when they, yo what? How you wonder how when they, how you wonder how when they, yo what?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.